All right, so let's get started on chapter 6, brand new chapter. And it's basically just vocab. There's no math involved at this point. There will be, okay, later on. But we're just going to get started on it, just kind of give you an overview of some things that we're going to be working on a little bit later. All right. The first section of this I did in the last class because we had a little more time, a little shorter on time on this class. So I'm going to go right to the heart of the matter. So we're going to learn several different types. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 types of quadrilaterals. And again, this is just so that you know what the words are. You've seen the words and you know what it means. Quadrilateral. There we go. So first of all, what's quadrilateral? You should know what a quadrilateral is. We've talked about quadrilateral. That's right, 4 sides, okay? Because the word right here, quad, meaning 4, and then lateral, you remember that? It's not a shape, it's a sides, okay? So 4 sides, okay? When I talk about lateral, remember we talked about that drill you do? You guys do that in football where they hold the ball out there, they blow the whistle, they go like this, and you jump to the left, you jump to the right. In basketball, it's a popular drill. I don't know if they still do that or not. But they always called that the lateral drill because you're going what? Side to side, okay? You're going side to side, laterally, okay? So 4 sides. All right? So here we go. The first one. The first one's a biggie because we're going to have, there's going to be like an offshoot of this word right here. And we're going to do a few of those. Actually, 3 of the 4 are going to be this thing right here. It's a word that you may have heard of before, but I don't know if you've really done any studying on this. Well, you know that word, parallel, right? And then if you put an O-gram on there, it's a parallelogram, all right? Has anybody heard of a parallelogram before? Yeah, you probably heard of it, but if I asked you to tell me what you know about a parallelogram, I don't know, what would you say? Let's say you never heard of the word parallelogram before in your life. What do you think might be true about a parallelogram just by the name of it? Something's parallel. That's right. Something's parallel. And Josh, you said it. The sides are parallel. Okay, but which sides are parallel? Both sides? Well, there's 4 sides. All 4 are parallel? All 4 aren't parallel. Top and bottom one, okay, and the ones on the sides, okay? Or this is the part that I kind of skipped. If you want to watch it, you can watch the other class's video if you want. Probably won't. That's fine. Just put it right there. Thank you. All right. So a parallelogram is a quadrilateral. Let's just do it right here. Okay. So a parallelogram is a quadrilateral. I'll just put quad. Is that all right? And again, what does it mean to be a quadrilateral? 4 sides. You got exactly 4 sides. Okay. So it's a quadrilateral with, that's my width, W and then a slash thing right there. Not that width is that much longer to write, but anyway, that's how I write it. Okay, with 2 pairs of parallel, here's the key word right here. Well, parallel is kind of a key word, but this is also key. Opposite, if I could spell, opposite sides. All right, so it's a quadrilateral. Do we have a 4-sided figure? Yeah, okay. And it says, with 2 pairs of parallel opposite sides. So the word opposite, we've talked about that before, haven't we? Talked about, even on the test that you just took. The sides, you talk about a side that's opposite an angle or an angle that's opposite a side. What about 2 sides that are opposite? So what if I call this ABCD? What would be my opposite sides? AB and what? DC, right, or CD, right? AB and DC, they would be opposite, correct? And then AD and what else? BC would be opposite. Agreed? All right, so they would be opposite sides. What's true about the opposite sides, though? They're what? They're parallel to each other. Remember a long time ago when we talked about parallel, we had a little symbol for it. Do you remember what the symbol was? No, that's what the last class said. That's what? What's the equal sign with a squiggly on top of it? That's congruent, right? How do I show that this is parallel to this by a little symbol? No, the tick marks mean they're equal to each other in length. They're little arrows, okay? You remember this? Yeah. Remember we did parallel lines cut by transversal? And what do we say about the lines? If they're parallel, right? So we've seen that before. It's not new, all right? Just a little refresher. It's been a while since we've done that. So these two would be parallel to each other. How do I show that AD and BC would be parallel to each other? Do I just put one arrow like that? Put two arrows, right? Just to show that it's different than this. That's the only reason, all right? So just because it has two doesn't mean it's any longer or shorter or anything else, or any more special. It just means the ones with one arrow are parallel, the ones with two arrows are parallel. That's the definition of a parallelogram. So anytime you have a four-sided figure and both opposite sides are parallel to each other, okay, then it's a what? Parallelogram, okay? Now the next 1, 2, 3 things we're going to talk about are all parallelograms as well, okay? So now we got like a little subset of parallelograms, okay? Whoops, what am I doing there? Let's do that. All right, so let's take a look at this. This is probably a word that you could tell me what it is right now. If I just drew that right there, what would you tell me that is? Okay, it is a quadrilateral, okay? Josh, you said a what? A rectangle. Sure looks like a rectangle, but can I say for a fact that that's a rectangle? Why not? What's a rectangle have to have? Well, any quadrilateral can have four sides. What's that? 90-degree angles. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, how do I show a 90-degree angle? Instead of writing 90, a little box. Okay, little box, little box. So check this out. What does it also look like? I didn't draw it on here, but just by our eyes, just looking at it, what does it look like the opposite sides are? Parallel to each other, that's right. So it looks like these two are parallel and these two are parallel. Thank you. So what is it? It's a parallelogram, isn't it? All right. But more specifically, it's a specific type of parallelogram, and it's something that we've heard before. It's a rectangle. Say it again. Okay, you could think of it that way. It's a right angle parallelogram, all right, if you want to think of it that way. All right, but we give it a special name, and we call it a rectangle. So let me give you the definition. So it is a parallelogram. All right, so it is a parallelogram with four, what kind of angles? Right angles. I'll just shorten a lot of my words here, okay? That's with, that thing right there. So it's a parallelogram with four right angles. So what do I know about this side and this side? I know they're parallel, okay? Because it has to be a parallelogram. So if I got a parallelogram with all right angles, it's a what? It's a rectangle. Simple, right? That's all we're doing today, okay? All we're doing is just seeing what these things look like, what the name is, what the definition is. We're going to do a lot more with this later on, okay? We're going to do a lot more with parallelograms. We're going to do a lot more with rectangles and all the other stuff that we're going to talk about today. How many I say we're going to do? 5? So that's 2 of them. So how many more we got? 3. So let's talk about this word. Now this word, rectangle's very familiar to you. Ever since you're a little kid, would you agree? You knew what a rectangle was. This one, maybe not so famous. But you've probably heard it before. It's a rhombus. Have you heard that word before? Yeah. Now, if I sat here and asked you what a rhombus was, you may not be able to tell me. It's a cube? A rhombus? Like, it's a sphere? That's all right. I'm not expecting to remember it. I'm just curious. Because really, when you're younger, you don't really deal with rhombuses too much, or rhombi. That's the plural. Did you know that? Yeah, it's not rhombuses, it's rhombi. Rhombi. Okay, I'm trying to draw this fairly particular because something's got to be true about it. Now watch this. So, what does it look like it is? It's actually 2 things we've already talked about. It's got 4 sides, so it's a what? Quadrilateral. What else does it look like? A little more specific. It looks like this and this are parallel, and it looks like this and this are parallel, doesn't it? So it's a parallelogram. It's not a rectangle. There's no right angles, okay? So it looks like a parallelogram, doesn't it? And it is a parallelogram. But a rhombus is a parallelogram. What else do you think is true about all 4 sides? I tried to draw it so it looked like it. Just the sides itself, not the angles. What does it look like? If I measured that side, I measured this side, I measured this one, I measured this one. What does it just eyeballing it look at? Yeah, it looks like they're all equal, doesn't it? Okay, and that's what a rhombus is. It's a parallelogram with 4 equal sides. Okay? Everybody see that? So it's a parallelogram, which means the opposite sides are parallel to each other. All right? But this specific thing has all 4 sides equal, so that's a rhombus. Like if I told you, what's a before you walked in today, if I said, what's a 4-sided figure with 4 equal sides, what would you probably tell me? You'd probably say a square, okay? And I wouldn't fault you for that at all, because that's what usually pops in our head. But technically, this is not a square, is it? Okay? It is a parallelogram, so it's a parallelogram. Exactly. Parallelogram with 4 equal sides. Okay? So when all 4 sides are equal, it's a what? Rhombus. That's a parallelogram. Is that a rhombus? No, because that side right there is definitely longer than that one. Okay? This is also a parallelogram, isn't it? But do all 4 sides look equal? No. On this one? All 4 sides? This side right here looks as long as that one? No, that's way shorter than that one. Okay, so that's not a rhombus. That's a rhombus because it's a parallelogram and all 4 sides are what? Equal to each other. Good. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to kind of marry the rectangle and the rhombus together. Okay, so if the rectangle and the rhombus, first of all, they got married. Okay, Christian school, right? We've got to do it in the right order. So they got married and they had a baby, all right? And so what do you think that baby is called? The combination between a rectangle and a rhombus. A rhombus? Come on, think about it. Come on. It's something that you've already actually mentioned today. This is a rectangle. First of all, why is it a rectangle? It's got 4 right angles. It's a parallelogram, right? It's a parallelogram that has 4 right angles. But what do I know about the rhombus? So that makes this a rectangle. That's a rectangle right there. Would you agree? A little kid, if I showed him this picture, would they say rectangle? A little kid in 2nd grade. If I showed him this, what would they say this is? A what? A square. Why is nobody saying square? I thought people would say square right away. All right? I got one that said square. All right. If I show this to a little kid, they'd probably say this is a square. But technically, it is a rectangle, isn't it? All right? Remember, this is the baby of a what? A rectangle and a rhombus. So it's a rectangle because all 4 angles are right angles. Why is it also a rhombus? Because, well, not because they're parallel, because all 4 sides are equal to each other. Okay? Would you agree this is a combination between a rectangle and a rhombus? Yes. It's basically just a rhombus with all 4 right angles. Okay? Or it's a rectangle with what? All 4 equal sides. You got it? Good. So let's write it down. What is that thing? It's nothing fancy. Something you've heard of since you were just a little tiny kid, right? You learn that. You learn what a square is when you first learn your shapes. It's probably one of the first things you learn. You learn what a circle is, what a square is, and then it went on from there. Agreed? So what is a square? It's well, you could look at it as a rhombus with 4 right angles. You can look at it 2 ways. I'll put a 1 here and a 2. You could look at it as a rhombus with what? 4 right angles. Agreed? Or you could look at it as a what? As a rectangle with what? With 4 equal sides. Would you agree that's true? Either one of those, okay? You could look at it as this or this. So that's a square. Now, if it's a rhombus and if it's a rectangle, it's also a parallelogram. Okay, so it's still a parallelogram, but it's a real specific parallelogram, isn't it? All right? Everybody got that? Okay. Super easy so far, correct? Now, I'll just tell you the name of this next one. This is something you probably heard. You probably had a lot of fun with, maybe, in your lifetime. I did. I grew up playing with these all the time. And it's a kite. Has anybody flown a kite before? Yeah, it's kind of fun, right? All right. We used to put like 4 or 5 rolls of string all tied together, right? And that kite would be so high you could barely even see where it was. It was crazy. So anyway, what's a kite? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to draw it different than I did in the last class. See these 2 lines right here? Don't draw those lines. I'm going to do it just so I make my kite pretty accurate. We're going to talk about those lines, those first 2 lines that I drew. We're going to talk about them later because we're going to get a lot more specific with a kite later on. Okay, it's towards the end of the chapter, I think. Boom. So there you go. There's a kite. That looks like a kite, doesn't it? Kind of an old-fashioned kite. They got these crazy fancy kites now that look like all kinds of shapes, and all that. Like in China, you ever see these Chinese kites? They look like dragons and really super cool. But this is your basic, everyday, super easy-looking kite. So time's running out, so let me just tell you what a kite is. I might not even write it down. I'll just show you on the picture right here. So a kite has 2 equal consecutive sides. When I say consecutive, it means they're right next to each other. You see how that side connects to this side? Okay, they're consecutive. So those 2 are equal, and it's got another pair of consecutive equal sides. Where would that be? This one down here on the bottom left, and this one here on the bottom right. Now, what's not true is, do you see how these sides are opposite each other? See that? This one's opposite that. If it's a kite, those will never be equal to each other. Okay, this one right here and this one right here will not be equal to each other. So it has 2 pairs of equal sides, right? But the ones that are opposite each other are not equal, just the consecutive ones, right? And that's basically a kite. This is the only one that's not a what? Parallelogram. That's right, because look at the opposite sides. See, this one right here and this one right here. Do they look parallel to each other? No, they don't. Look at that. Perfect timing. No homework. We're going to continue this on Monday. All right, so enjoy your weekend. Yeah, it's 2 pairs of equal consecutive sides. But the opposite sides are not equal to each other. Okay? So these 2 pairs of sides are equal. They're consecutive sides. But the opposite sides are not equal to each other. All right, that's it. Have a good rest of the day.